これより
Now, we would like to begin the Program Committee session of the Innovative City Forum. Professor Takenaka, Professor Ichikawa, Mr. Ito, and Mr. Nanjo, please come to the stage.
それでは竹中先生よろしく
Now over to you, Professor Takenaka. So this is the final session of the two-day program, Innovative City Forum. We've only got 30 minutes left. Throughout those two past days, the program committee members, what is your feeling about this forum, and how do you want the future forum to be? Science and technology, art, city strategy. You will represent those topics from Mr. Ichikawa, who is closest to me, about the urban development strategies. If you have spoken about the 2035 vision, if you could talk about the future of cities. The uniqueness of our Innovative City Forum is that I myself, Mr. Nanjo, and Mr. Ito, Mr. Technology, are each taking care of the three different topics, technology and bio, and talking about the apparatus for the future, and hopefully if we could come up with some kind of results. We have been engaged in this, and this is our 5th year, and in the City Forum, we have been pondering upon the future of Tokyo in 2030, and in the session, we've spoken about the coming decade and the next decade after that. Last year, what we have done is the expert committee, and the background to that is the changes in technology and how we can relate the city development to that. In the limited time, we have spoken about a lot of things, and we have made the efforts to draw the picture for the future. And whether or not that was sufficient, the answer would be no. And we need to get to the cooperation from Mr. Nanjo about the art and technology from Mr. Ito, and we would like to make this more significant by adding more elements. So in the next forum, we would like to improve this version. And also about the city ranking and about the ranking of Tokyo within the discussion. We have said in some of the indexes, indicators, we were number 1, and there were some questions about, is the ranking so important? But for me, it is that kind of a question that is more important. It's important that we need to speak discussing about the ranking. It's how we can move forward. So there is art and technology, and the ranking is different depending on the scope, and the forum is very important as a place to consider that. I don't think this would exist outside of this forum. People would normally talk about only one issue, like smart city alone. In our case, we talk also about art and technology. I think it's most important that we would incorporate all of those elements, dimensions that together. And for the future, I have a lot of plans. Mr. Ichikawa, at the very outset, you have said Paris is fashion, London is finance, Tokyo's uniqueness is not existent. You have said that at the very beginning. And now, after 2 days, what would be the name that can be given to Tokyo now? On the other hand, in one of the sessions, they have said that this very relaxed type of Tokyo is Tokyo itself. There was one comment raised by the expert. At the beginning, I have spoken about Paris, the city of flowers. And then in Tokyo, what is the question? Only 85% of the people have said that there is no one word that would describe Tokyo. And a lot of people have said that Tokyo is edgy and unique. And then the uniqueness, how could this be defined? And that is not yet concrete. So going forward in the next future, I hope to come up with one word definition. So this is a commitment for the next year.
And Mr. Nanjo, please. in relation to culture, we have to put more money in it. Is that what you have said? And then people have given their support. Yes, indeed. Yesterday we talked about symbiosis or coexistence, and there we talked about from agriculture to space. It's a broad discussion. And as we pursue that line, we need a systematic way of thinking, understanding the ecosystem. In the past, they were separated in pieces and then putting them together as one, as a total. But now they are all interdependent and connected so easy, so they cannot be easily separated or categorized. Today we talked mainly about AI, and AI to understand those things and process. The AI is very suited, and that is a new technology that came up with. That's how I look at it. And in that kind of context, yesterday, toward the end of discussion, as a conclusion, system, should it be done bottom-up or top-down? And the balance between those two approaches are very important. And in the morning, we talked about media art, and then in the afternoon, we talked about the art's role in the time of the artificial intelligence, especially the discussion about the art in the era of AI. That actually inspires so many people's imagination. Can AI create art? Well, it says role of art, but actually what we have discussed is that whether AI can create art. We talked a lot about it. And that issue goes to, say, evaluation. And then we talked about quality. That leads to the discussion of quality. But this kind of discussion, is it really the issue of evaluation? I was pondering about it. Matsuo-san has talked about Van Gogh. When we look at Van Gogh paintings, can AI make it? Yes, AI can make it. But the issue is whether the Van Gogh can come up with the data before Van Gogh. That is the issue. And going back to what we have discussed, meaning how Tokyo should be titled Creative City Tokyo. I think, of course, you can use different terms, but Tokyo can only be termed as creative. Well, we talked about it. Yeah, I have written about it in my presentation. I didn't say it. I said but the answer was this bright, radiant city, Tokyo. Maybe it doesn't really communicate what it really means. Maybe that is what Tokyo is. One thing that I want to say is in relation to art and AI, that is that Sputnik, Nico-san has said, it sounded very light, but it's important, meaning that she said nonchalantly, but artists, humans, I would say, do things that because it's enjoyable. That is art. And not really trying to get good evaluation. That way of answers, it is sort of shifted answer to a question. And look at it from a bigger point of view. The question whether AI can create art, that question itself is meaningless. I want you to think deeply in the era of AI, the meaning of humans doing art, and whether AI can make art or not. Those are two different issues. When people have more time, people try to, or want to make culture, want to make art. So whether AI can do it or not, I think it doesn't need to be questioned. It's not worth questioning. Thank you very much. With Mr. Nanjo, we have done the lecture in Keio University in relation to art. But AI can make it or not. Art itself cannot be defined. And things which cannot be defined cannot be created. Humans make something artistic, and unless people make, the people cannot be impressed or be moved. So I think what we are discussing, the things, those are the things very fuzzy. So Ito-san, please.
So, Mr. Ito, so the technology is emerging, which can create something new, and that is bringing about the technology. And now you are at MIT, which is the mecca of technology, and you are participating from MIT. And what is your overall impression this time? Yesterday, we talked about augmentation. And in that discussion, well, AI is independent and separately discussed. And yesterday we talked about the augmenting human functions. So well, I believe that there are different schools of people or the factions of people the sect of people who talked about these topics. And the question is which is stronger or which can win. But towards the end of yesterday's session, as we talked with Kitano-san, in order to make this world better, well, the better for whom? So the city ranking is interesting because, well, you talked about the edginess and the uniqueness. Well, some time ago, we only looked at the GDP to rank the cities. But back in 1960s, Japan, back in 1960s, probably GDP was the yardstick to the measure the economic growth. But now this country is more stable and not growing in terms of GDP. So we are talking about the happiness or edginess or the creativity. So we are trying to define ourselves with the criteria that is hard to define. But the culture changes. So the city that is good for us may not be a good place for our children. And AI, if we include that in AI, with AI, and the way we work, the way we live differ. Is it better to live in a country where you don't have to work? Or you need to work because you can feel the resonator or the reason that you live? Or is it happier to resort to art? So in essence, looking at the birth and the development of the democracy, well, the civics and the country and they only engaged in artistic aspect, but they had slaves. And because of the existence of slaves, they didn't have to work in a sense that we refer to work. But the AI is the next generation slaves. But having slaves, is this okay to have slaves from an ethical point of view? MIT Media Lab. Well, there we also have the classroom with Harvard University about the right of robots. So to use human slaves in Christian world. Well, they had the philosophical, the explanation to justify the slavery. And so when we have the robots and AI-based robots, this is not human, and they work for us, and they provide us the servitude. But if those AI creates art and become very close to human beings, next question is a more ethical question, cultural question, as to whether it is okay to ask AI to serve as our slaves. And if we say okay, if we are using something very similar to human beings, which is robots and AI to provide the service for us, well, psychologically are we able to accept it? So the relationship with the new creature, the newly born creature, is quite interesting. Together with Daniele, I talk about this topic. Well, in the context of the prejudice, racial prejudice, finally, well, the women, in the U.S., for example, well, the women acquired the right to vote, and in modern times. So that is a perspective as we look at the relationship with robots. And art is quite important in the sense that, well, when computer emerges, what people are supposed to do, the meaning of life, meaning of human life, and what is this good for, and for whom, what is happiness, and for what do we live? So it's a very philosophical question. And towards the end of today's session, Well, we tend to look at these things from the business point of view, like the startup business. But once we achieve certain level of convenience, what shall we do? So just like the city ranking, well, the human ranking or the ranking of people in terms of the life value, maybe that's the another perspective we should look at. Yes, please.
どうぞちょっとだけ
What you thought to be the slave could be your master. Maybe that's the concern for all of us. Maybe I can talk about this forever, but we've spoken a lot about Shintoism yesterday. And within Shintoism, there is no control. They are together with the nature, and there's no idea of a slavery. Whereas in the Western world, they have started with the slaves. And when they began the farming, the slaves were introduced. Like Nelly had spoken, it leads up to that. There is the concept of control, but we need to eliminate that. Unlike the bottom-up idea, like a symbiosis and a relationship who neither is controlling another. It's not that we're going to control the machines. Rather, we would be fusing with the machines. Ethically and from design perspective, I think that is correct. Thank you very much. It's a very profound comment. What is happening today is not simply making lives more convenient. It has to do with the way we live. It has to do with the essence of the way we live. And we have to come up with the answers to this question. And I myself, in the past up to days, have been stimulated a lot. And in the keynote speech, Mr. Keio have spoken about the concept of society. It begins with an empty space, like in the shrines, it's empty, but there may be something, there may be God inside. That's where our society begins. On the other hand, we would settle in one place, in one location, and that's the way we felt more secure, to have one big house and to go to the best restaurant in town and then to live there. To have a livelihood there was the ideal. However, if we look at the people who are influential in the society today, they do not settle in one place. They are moving around. They are more nomadic. So there is an essential change that's taking place. And against this backdrop, we need to think about the future, and we needed to position the cities within some framework. As a final point, each of you, 1 minute. For the next year's Innovative City Forum, we hope that there will be another round of Innovative City Forum next year. And before that, what are the topics that we should think about? Based on the discussions from today and yesterday, what should we be thinking about toward next year? So if you could comment on that, 1 minute each from the three of you.
So what we have discussed today or this time is what is global city. What we are thinking about it is a very advanced things, but right behind it or right beside it, there are things which are not so, say, great, meaning the poor or poverty is one thing. How it can be, say, incorporated? We are not involved in economy as well, but what is a city that is important for everybody? So inclusiveness, that's what you are talking about. And Nanjo-san, when we talk about city level, everybody should be happy in that city. That should be the ultimate goal. But in order to reach that, what kind of routes can we take? What kind of processes can we take? That's a discussion we should talk. So we are sort of summarizing 2 days of discussion. But there's another day, that's tomorrow, there. So we have another session. And the theme there is that innovation for happiness. So I want everybody to come and listen to that. And Mika Ninagawa will be here, and Chim Pom, that's the very interesting Japanese say artists will come, and Sravel and Ninamon-san from Thailand. There are interesting people coming to tomorrow's session. So focusing upon Asia, it's a very interesting, there are interesting sessions tomorrow, so we invite you, we will urge you to come. So innovation for happiness, that is something that we have to think about toward next year, because looking at the reality as science advances, people-centric world is not there anymore. When I met the astronaut, Dr. Mori, he said that globe, the Earth, is not really human-centric. It's moving without really concession to people. We have to think about that from that perspective. So what we are thinking about, the reality is different. So, but in that reality, how people live and how people become happy, that's important, as Ms. Sputnik said. So art is something that people make for happiness. So not to create it, but to create, to become happy. So AI, well, please wait. Let me talk. So it's not the issue that the AI should create art, but who will become happy? That's the world of art. Therefore, in that sense, happiness for humans, and but the very severe reality we have to look at, they have to be considered in parallel at the same time. Ichikawa-san, please.
Ichikawa-san, yes. Looking at the history, city is not the cannot last forever. So the Roman Empire, Rome, went extinct because of the too much affluence. So to what extent and how long we can sustain the city, that is the big question mark. Yes, Ichikawa-san, you talked about uniqueness and edgy. So focusing upon these two words, uniqueness, that is related to creativity. And AI is strong because, what was learned by this particular car can be transmitted to another car, which is not unique. It is not uniqueness, which is related to art discussion. So there are some to generate something creative out of what you learned. It may be possible by AI, but this is something that we expect from humans and also from city. The educational system to build robots, that's what we did in Japan and the US. But we have to focus upon creativeness and edginess. And happiness, one ambiguous point is that you feel happy by smoking marijuana, drinking beer, watching TV. It is not edgy, it is not creative at all. So the energetic and the enthusiastic cities and the culture, the happiness is not the only required factor. We also need creativity and uniqueness. That is where uniqueness is also related, creativity. And the one thing that is interesting is Nanjo-san, the art is for happiness. But oftentimes, you often use art in order to make people feel uncomfortable. So edgy. So you may feel a little uncomfortable, or it may be something unsettling. The feeling comfortable always is not good for the city. So the machines may make things efficient. So make it convenient, efficient, and make you feel at peace. And then you may just disappear and become complacent. So uniqueness, creativity, edginess, not just for cities, but for us human beings. And also, even with the advent of AI, our roles will remain. If we keep that. So that's a wonderful conclusion. Any additional comments? Yes, please. One last comment, please.
That's very true. The nerves of the humans, if you receive the same stimulus, they will not react to it. And also the eyeball is moving all the time. And you need to have a fresh light all the time. And when people live, if you're doing the same thing over and over again, you get bored and you would no longer be happy. And you need some kind of a stimulus all the time. But it's better than going to war. So I prefer people go to the art instead of going to the war. That's what I wanted to say. Thank you very much. Probably they're going to discuss this forever tonight. I will just introduce to you the content of a program committee. Since the first one, we've had Mr. Ichikawa, who's focused on urban development, and Mr. Nanjo would talk about art, and there is Mr. Ito, who would add oil to the fire, and I am the down one to tame the fire. And recently, Mr. Ichikawa and Mr. Nanjo are now getting along quite well, so in 5 years' time, it's going to be much happier. And as Mr. Nanjo had said, we would have more events tomorrow. There is the Innovative City Forum and the World Economic Forum wired event. It's a very comprehensive event, very intellectual, very stimulating. So please do participate in this. Thank you very much. Please give the panelists a big round of applause.